They say be careful what you wish for, that you may just get what it is, and you won't be wishing once you do. You'll be sobbing. I was told as a child that I should wish for wild things, things so far out there in the cosmos that even the kings and queens of alien worlds laugh in the face of my dreams. Such dreams that, if realized, would mean that all people are free of suffering. All people are free of a life that holds them prisoners in the clutches of misery. All people are returned to a state of harmony and peace. Is that so bad? No, of course not. But we don't want what we really want. Otherwise, they would not tell us to be careful when wishing for it. For we as humans may wish for water when we're drowning. We know not what we do. That brings me to what I wanted to say. I made a wish a few days ago. I didn't really think anything of it. Definitely didn't want it. But I asked for the wish to be granted anyway. A modern child in modern times is conditioned by her meathead friends, that of which is only so because they've been told this is the case, to get involved in things that one would never get involved in if left alone. But mix together the preteen middle schooler's brain with that of the entire class, you'll get a class of kids chanting, "Make them yak." Of course, in this particular moment, they were actually dead silent. Don't be fooled, though. This silence was far more deafening and pressuring to the mind of a middle schooler. A silence said, "This doesn't even need to be egged on. Get on with it." No need for vocal convincing. All recognized the respect gained from completing unspoken tasks with the same fervor a peasant looks at gold. And as a middle schooler in need of proving myself, I, unfortunately, was the victim of something quite horrifying as a child. My wish was to forget. I was in Mrs. Gouger's class, sitting at my desk, focusing on my work for the day. Mrs. Gouger had dressed like a blueberry that day. A blue coat and pants were wrapped around her orbit. In other words, she was a very large woman. She resembled the actors who played Oompa Loompas in the Johnny Depp version and wore big, thick black glasses. The glasses were like the kind old men get after eye surgery. A weaker-necked elderly man would be incapable of raising his head with Mrs. Gouger's daily readers on. Despite her comic book appearance and her Fran Drescher vocal tones, she was a good algebra teacher. This, however, did not change the fact that all the children find school infuriatingly boring and a waste of time. And so I sat there, not paying attention to the subject I needed to the most, doodling in the margins and corners of my paper. That's what I did to pass time. And in hindsight, it was the beginning of my career in comics. But that's not for here nor there. I ended up drawing something that even alarmed Mrs. Gouger, who was typically a self-proclaimed cool kitten. Gouger had a nasally voice, one that if you heard it without a face to back it up, you'd picture its owner with a scrunched nose and squinted eyes. Her voice resembled that of Gilbert Gottfried, and that is with all due respect to both Mrs. Gouger and Mr. Gottfried. Both are legends in my eyes. Also in my eyes was this doodle, a little sketch of a man, only it wasn't an everyday, regular kind of doodle. It was disturbing. The kind that makes you think something's wrong with you. Pieces of the man floated around himself, cluttering the airspace as he seemed to look directly at whoever looked at the page. His bloodied hands seemed to be letting his own skin fragments float down so they could melt in his body heat like snow. His face was morphed, unlike any face a human being ever laid eyes upon, let alone wielded. Blood dripped from his eyes, and the trail trickled down, under his tattered clothing and into his sock, filling his boot with his own blood. The misshapen head was given the effect of shaking by squiggly lines surrounding him. His eyes were half circles, the look of complete and utter fear. And his mouth, his bottom lip was missing. Blood oozed its way from his open flesh down into the already running stream of eye blood, creating a thicker, faster stream. His boot overflowed with his own body's fuel. He looked horrified. I didn't think much of him. Every day in each class, I find myself doodling a face or beast, and at least a few are creepy enough to irk me. I went home later that day, spending my night playing the new Call of Duty. In the midst of my simulated warfare, I was jolted to direct my focus towards a loud bang from behind me. I got up and picked up my bag off the floor. I guess I'd left it too close to the edge. I set it under my desk and got back to my game. Moments later, I was again ripped from my focus for something coming from behind me. Only this time, it was very quiet. This time, it was second by second, inch by inch. I could hear the faint sound of my backpack unzipping. My eyes locked onto my bag as my head whipped around in less than a second. Nothing. The bag hadn't moved at all. I continued playing my game, and after a few hours longer, and thankfully a few hours of peace, I was ready for bed. It was early in the morning that I awoke to a strange noise. It was coming from under my desk, and it was muffled. However, despite the muffledness, I could clearly tell what the sound was. I don't know how, but it sounded like breathing. Raspy breaths muffled by canvas were coming from my backpack. I don't know why, but I decided to ignore it. I went back to bed. Before I could roll over completely, I was jolted fully awake by a loud bang and the instantaneous sound of unzipping. Following the violent unzipping was the sound of hurried footsteps across my room. They ended just beyond the edge of my bed. The raspy breathing was now much louder, and with it was the sound of thick liquid dripping against the hardwood floors. I turned over to peek from under the covers at what it was. I turned over to see a bloody man, missing his lower lip, huddled over at the edge of my bed. I write to you now because I am terrified in the wake of my wish. For years, I lived with the haunting memory of that night, that horrible night. But since I made this wish, well, last night, when I laid in bed at night, just as I began to doze off, I heard the raspy breathing of the smiley face I drew on my math work. Hi everyone, Giggles here. Just wanted to say thank you to all of my incredible patrons for supporting me. Tam B, Jen Miser, Skymara Ravenswood, Melissa Perez, Bernard Jackson, Leaf Ninja, Roy Larmer, Mr. Creepypasta, Neon Scoundrel, and William Delphin. I'm still figuring out rewards for Patreon, but if you would still like to support, click the link in the description and I will hopefully have something for you guys soon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.